ended words. Time seemed to slow, the space between heartbeats stretched thin as the flame hovered on the brink of eruption. In that moment, vulnerability and strength intertwined. Their love was ablaze, both beautiful and terrifying. When the final word fell from their lips, a hush settled over the room. The embers glowed steady, no sudden flare, no consuming blaze. They had survived the ritual's trial, but the danger was far from over. The flame's presence lingered watchful, waiting. Eva exhaled, a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Rowan reached out, his hand finally bridging the gap to rest gently over hers. The warmth was real, a tangible proof that their love could burn without destroying them. As Mira stepped forward with a relieved smile, and Detective Thorne closed his book with a thoughtful nod, the four shared a moment of fragile hope. They knew the path ahead would be fraught with peril, but tonight, the city's curse had met its match in measured love. Outside, the winds whispered through the smoldering streets, carrying with them the promise of change. Eva and Rowan's fire burned bright, a beacon against the darkness, a testament to the courage it took to love in a world where every heartbeat was a risk. The air between them thickened, charged with an energy neither Eva nor Rowan could fully contain. They had danced around this moment for months, careful as a pair of tightrope walkers suspended above an abyss that threatened to swallow them whole if they faltered. But tonight the tension unraveled, a slow burn flaring into a blaze that neither could resist nor fully control. Eva's stormy grey eyes met Rowan's intense green ones, both pools of restrained desire and unspoken fear. The room around them, dimly lit by the muted glow of city lights filtering through rain-speckled windows, seemed to pulse with their shared heartbeat. She could feel the heat of his presence, like a living flame licking at her skin. A dangerous warmth she both craved and dreaded. "Eva," Rowan whispered, his voice low, roughened by months of pent-up longing. "We don't have to do this, we can step back." But the words, instead of cooling the fire, only fanned the sparks into a roaring inferno. She shook her head, breath hitching. "No," she said, voice trembling. "I'm tired of stepping back. I'm tired of living in fear." With a tentative, desperate tenderness, Rowan reached out, brushing a stray lock of dark chestnut hair from her face. His fingers were warm, grounding, a balm against the icy dread that tightened her chest. Their hands met, fingers intertwining, cautious at first, then with increasing certainty. The space between them vanished. Their lips met, soft and hesitant at first, then with fierce urgency. The kiss was a collision of years of longing, pain and hope, a defiant act against the city's cruel curse that threatened to consume them. The room seemed to shrink around them, shadows flickering on the walls like flames dancing to an unseen rhythm. Suddenly, a searing heat erupted within Eva's chest, a wildfire breaking free from its cage. She gasped, breaking the kiss, her body trembling uncontrollably. The air shimmered, and for a fleeting moment, the faint smell of smoke and ash filled the room. Rowan caught her before she could fall, his arms steadying her shaking frame. "Eva, stay with me," he urged, voice fierce but gentle. "I'm here." Her breath hitched as the burning sensation pulsed through her veins, threatening to ignite the deadly combustion that had stolen so much from them both. Panic clawed at her throat, but Rowan's steady presence anchored her. Slowly the heat ebbed, leaving a dull ache in its wake. They sat in silence, the distant wail of sirens blending with the crackling whispers of the flame, an ever-present spectre lurking at the edges of their fragile peace. The city outside remained oblivious to the intimate battle unfolding within this small sanctuary. "This changes everything," Eva finally whispered, voice barely audible. Rowan nodded, his jaw clenched in determination. "But it doesn't end us, not if we decide it won't." Her fingers found his again, their touch deliberate, a silent vow forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal. They were no longer two cautious souls skirting the edges of love's fire. Tonight they chose to burn bright, fierce, and unafraid. As the night deepened, their hearts beat in unison, a rhythm marked by the bittersweet tension of dangerous devotion. The curse still whispered. But Eva and Rowan had found a voice of their own, a defiant hymn of hope and courage that would echo through the smoldering streets long after the embers faded. And though the path ahead remained shadowed by uncertainty, one truth blazed clear: love, in all its peril and beauty, was worth the risk. The city held its breath, watching, waiting. But Eva and Rowan were no longer afraid to face the flames. The morning light seeped softly through the stained glass of Mira's cafe, casting fractured rainbows over the worn wooden table where Eva sat alone. The city outside was draped in ash-gray hues, a somber reminder of the curse that clung to every heartbeat here. She cradled her coffee cup, feeling its warmth seep into her chilled fingers, a small comfort in a world that had taught her to fear the heat of connection. Her thoughts drifted back to the night before, the moment that had nearly undone them both. The surge of passion, reckless and consuming, had threatened to ignite the deadly flame that haunted their city. But somehow, by sheer will and trembling restraint, they had pulled back from the precipice. Now, in the fragile quiet that followed, Eva wrestled with the weight of their choice. The bell above the cafe door tinkled softly, drawing her attention. Rowan stepped inside, his silhouette framed by the soft morning light. He wore the usual casual defiance, a leather jacket thrown over a simple shirt, his unruly dark hair tousled as if caught by the wind itself. His green eyes, flickering like embers, searched for her with a mixture of hope and caution. He slid into the seat across from her with a quiet smile, the space between them charged yet tender. "Morning," he said, voice low, carrying the remnants of last night's tension. "Morning," Eva replied, her stormy grey eyes meeting his. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I wasn't sure I'd make it through the night without thinking about you," he confessed, the honesty in his tone unraveling some of the walls she had built around her heart. They spoke in measured words, each syllable weighed with care. The city around them hummed with life, the distant echoes of footsteps and muted conversations, weaving a tapestry of normalcy that felt almost alien to their fragile reality. Later, Rowan found himself beneath the skeletal branches of a leafless tree in the park, the fading light of dusk pooling around him. Before him, a small bonfire sputtered, its embers glowing faintly before surrendering to the night. The crackling whispers of the dying flame mirrored the turmoil within him, a tension between the desire to burn brightly and the need to survive the cold dark. He waited, heart thrumming with a quiet resolve for Eva to arrive. When she finally appeared, her presence calmed the restless flicker inside him. They stood side by side, the silence between them speaking volumes. "We still hear," Eva murmured, her voice barely above the rustling leaves. "And we'll keep being here," Rowan replied, reaching out to gently take her hand. The touch was electric yet careful, a promise held in the fragile warmth of their fingers. Back in Eva's apartment, the dim glow of candlelight painted soft shadows on the walls. They sat close, their bodies aching for connection but restrained by the unspoken fear that love here was a dangerous fire. Their hands brushed, sending sparks of warmth that both thrilled and terrified them. "I don't want to lose you," Eva whispered, her voice trembling like a fragile flame. "You won't," Rowan vowed, eyes shining with fierce determination. "Not if we keep holding on, even when it's hard." Their moment was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Detective Elias Thorne entered, his trench coat heavy with the weight of the city's despair. His eyes, shadowed by sleepless nights, held new information that could shift the tide of their fight against the curse. He laid out his findings, fragments of ancient lore, patterns in the combustions, and a glimmer of hope that the deadly flame might be weakened. The room pulsed with urgency, the candlelight flickering as if echoing the fragile hope growing in their hearts. "This isn't over," Elias said grimly. "But there's more to fight for than just survival now." Eva and Rowan exchanged a look, one of shared strength and fragile hope. They were no longer just survivors of a deadly curse. They were partners in a dangerous dance of love and defiance. As dawn crept over the city, painting the sky with hues of soft gold and rose. Eva felt a quiet shift within her. The ashes of fear were still there, but beneath them, embers of hope burned steady and bright. Together, they would navigate the perilous path ahead, between ashes and embers, love's flame flickering defiantly against the darkness. "Whatever comes next," Rowan whispered, "we face it together." Together, Eva affirmed, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. And in that fragile promise, the city's curse felt just a little less inevitable. Yet, as the first light touched the smoldering streets, the question lingered: how long could their fragile flame endure before the inevitable blaze consumed them both? The answer awaited in the shadows, where the flame still whispered, patient and relentless. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the city still felt drenched in a heavy silence, as if the very air held its breath under the weight of impending dread. Detective Elias Thorne sat hunched over a cluttered desk in the archives beneath the police station. The dim light of a single desk lamp casting long shadows across the scattered papers and yellowed books. His fingers trembled slightly as he turned a fragile page, careful not to tear the brittle parchment. The scent of damp ink and ancient leather filled the cramped space, a scent he had come to associate with both hope and despair. For weeks, Elias had been chasing fragments of the city's cursed past, tracing the origins of the flame that haunted every heartbeat here. The combustions, the tragedies, the whispers of a curse older than memory all led him deep into forgotten histories no one dared revisit. Tonight, something felt different. His eyes caught a faded manuscript, its margins scrawled with symbols and a language that had taken him years to decipher. A ritual. A chance to weaken the curse. His breath caught. The words described a delicate balance of measured love, a dance of restraint and devotion that could soothe the flame's hunger. Yet the ritual was perilous, its success uncertain. He knew the stakes, the lives already lost, the flames licking at the edges of hope. Packed away carefully, the manuscript was a beacon in the dark. The following evening, the warmth of Mira's cafe was a stark contrast to the chill that clung to the city streets. The soft glow of hanging lanterns bathed the worn wooden tables, and the rich aroma of coffee mingled with the faint scent of cinnamon. Mira herself was a whirlwind of color and energy, her red hair a fiery banner against the muted walls. She moved behind the counter with practiced ease, stealing glances at the small group gathered near the window. Eva sat across from Rowan and Elias, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her chipped ceramic cup. Her stormy grey eyes were shadowed with doubt, the ghosts of past losses flickering behind them. Rowan's gaze was steady, his intense green eyes flickering like embers as he listened intently to Elias's cautious explanation. "The manuscript suggests a path," Elias said quietly, voice low but steady. "A ritual that might temper the flame, but it requires something rare, measured love, patience, trust. It's not a cure, but it could give us a fighting chance." Mira smiled, a hopeful light in the dim cafe. "Then we have to try, for all of us." Despite the weight of fear pressing down on them, a fragile hope began to take root. Outside, the city was restless. The usual hum of life was subdued, replaced by whispered rumors and wary glances. Street lamps flickered uncertainly, casting long shadows over slick pavements stained with the memories of smoke and ash. The scent of faint smoke still lingered, a reminder that the flame's hold was far from broken. Couples moved cautiously, eyes darting nervously, afraid to let their hearts ignite. The curse was no longer an invisible threat, it was a living shadow creeping across every corner, feeding on fear and loss. Back on her apartment balcony, Eva wrapped her arms around herself, the cool night breeze tugging at the layers of her clothing. The city sprawled before her, a maze of flickering lights and silent streets, the weight of its curse pressing heavily on her chest. In her hand, she held a small vial ashes from her first love, a painful talisman of what had been lost. Her breath fogged in the cold air as she whispered, "Maybe this time it will be different. Maybe we can fight the flame, not just survive it." The vial glimmered faintly in the moonlight, a fragile ember of memory and hope. But the flame was watching, always watching. As the first hints of dawn crept over the horizon, the city stirred. Its people, caught between despair and hope, braced for what the day would bring. The curse remained, a dark pulse beneath their hearts, but a new resolve kindled in the eyes of those who dared to dream of a future unburned. The ritual was no longer just a legend, it was their last chance. And the flame's shadow loomed larger than ever. "We have to be ready," Rowan said quietly, joining Eva on the balcony. His hand found hers, warm and steady. "For whatever comes next." Eva nodded, her heart aching with the bittersweet ache of love and fear. Together, they stood at the edge of the unknown, the city holding its breath, waiting to see if love could truly defy the fire. The soft hum of the calf wrapped around Eva and Rowan like a protective cocoon, the flickering candlelight casting warm shadows against the worn wooden table where they sat. Fingers barely brushing but hearts beating loudly in the quiet space between them. Mira's little sanctuary was a world apart from the restless tension of the smoldering city outside, a place where the suffocating weight of the curse softened, if only just. Tonight they weren't two cautious souls, tiptoeing around the edge of disaster, but partners in a quiet revolution, crafting a new way of loving that defied the flame's merciless reach. Eva traced the rim of her coffee cup, eyes meeting Rowan's with a tentative spark. "We need to find a rhythm," she whispered, voice steady but edged with vulnerability. "Something that lets us feel without falling apart." Rowan nodded, his usual easy smile tempered by the gravity of their shared reality. "Measured moments," he agreed. "Not too much, not too little." Like embers warm but contained, they sketched out their ritual in soft murmurs, touching hands only when the city's pulse slowed. Exchanging smiles that held unspoken promises but no overwhelming heat. Speaking in whispers that carried the weight of truth without igniting the flame. Each gesture was a delicate dance, a balancing act between the intoxicating thrill of connection and the razor's edge of survival. Outside, the night air was cool, scented faintly with rain and the lingering trace of burnt wood. Later, they walked the quiet streets side by side, the world around them hushed, as if holding its breath. Rowan's hand found Eva's, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she let their fingers intertwine, grounding herself in the steady beat of his warmth. "We were rewriting the story," Eva said softly, her voice carried on the breeze. "Not just for us, but for everyone who's been afraid to love." Rowan's green eyes flickered, fierce and hopeful. "It's scary," he admitted. "But maybe that's what makes it worth it." Back in the shadows of the city, Detective Elias Thorne pored over ancient texts and recent reports, his brow furrowed in concentration. Across the room, Mira's fiery hair caught the lamplight as she listened, the fight in her eyes mirroring the determination in his. The curse was no longer an unchallengeable force, it was a puzzle, a riddle that could be unraveled with patience and courage. As dawn approached, Eva stood at her apartment window, Rowan's hand warm in hers. The city sprawled beneath them, scarred but alive, a testament to resilience. The curse still whispered in the corners, but tonight their hearts beat not in fear, but in defiant hope. "Whatever comes," Eva murmured, "we face it together." Rowan squeezed her hand, the ember of their love glowing steady and true. Together. Their journey was far from over, but in this fragile new balance, they had found a spark that could light the way forward, a promise that love, even when tempered by fear, could still burn bright. And as the first light of morning stretched across the smoldering city, Eva and Rowan stepped into the unknown, courage entwined with hope, ready to challenge a fate that once seemed unchangeable. The new dawn was bittersweet, but it was theirs. And in that, they found the strength to keep loving, to keep fighting, to keep dreaming of a future where fiery hearts could burn without fear. The morning air was crisp with the first light of dawn filtering through the skeletal branches of the city's towering trees. Eva stood by the window of her modest apartment, her eyes tracing the hazy outlines of the city's skyline where the faintest ember-like glow lingered in the cool air. Today was different. She could feel it in her bones, a ripple of something new, fragile yet insistent, threading through the cautious hearts of the people around her. Downstairs, the distant laughter of children playing echoed faintly. Leela had been insistent last night, her bright eyes sparkling with a recklessness Eva both admired and feared. "Come on," Leela had said, tugging at her sleeve. "You can't live in your shell forever. We have to start somewhere. Even if it's just a small spark." Reluctantly, Eva had agreed. Today, they would leave behind the suffocating safety of shadowed streets and step into the sun-drenched park where the city's pulse seemed, for once, less burdened by fear. The park was alive with cautious hope. Couples sat on benches, their hands tentatively brushing, eyes darting away as if afraid their own yearning might ignite the ancient curse. Children ran freely, their laughter a balm against the city's oppressive silence. Bright autumn leaves scattered the ground in fiery hues, reds, oranges, and golds, colors that seemed to mock the deadly flame lurking just beneath the surface of every stolen glance. Leela's smile was infectious as she pulled Eva into the crowd. "See, it's not so bad," she whispered, her voice a mixture of triumph and challenge. "Love doesn't have to be fear. We can be the ones to prove it." Eva's gaze drifted to a small girl clutching a worn doll, her wide eyes reflecting a curiosity and innocence that pierced through Eva's carefully constructed walls. Harper, Mira's younger cousin, was a symbol of tomorrow, untouched yet by the curse's cruel hand. Harper's presence was a reminder of the stakes, of the future Eva and Rowan were fighting to protect. Later, as the afternoon waned, Eva found herself sitting beside Harper on a weathered park bench. The girl's questions came softly but with the clarity only a child could wield. "Why do people have to be afraid to love?" Harper asked, her voice a whisper almost lost in the rustling leaves. Eva swallowed the lump in her throat, searching for words that could bridge the chasm between hope and fear. "Because," she began gently, "sometimes love can hurt. But that doesn't mean it isn't worth it." Harper nodded solemnly, her innocence lending weight to the sentiment. "I want to believe it's always worth it." As dusk painted the sky in hues of violet and amber, Eva and Rowan found themselves atop an old rooftop overlooking the city. Below, the streets glowed faintly, embers flickering like distant stars against the coming night. The city breathed beneath them, a living, aching heart of flame and shadow. Rowan's hand found Eva's, their fingers intertwining in a quiet pledge. "We were not alone," he murmured, his voice steady despite the tempest of emotions swirling within. "Every small act of courage, every moment we choose love over fear, it ripples through this city." Eva leaned into him, the warmth of his presence a beacon against the cold uncertainty. "Maybe one day," she whispered, "these embers will grow into a fire that can't be burned out." Their resolve was a fragile flame, but a flame nonetheless, a spark of defiance in a city long shadowed by despair. That evening, Mira's cafe hummed with an energy that had been missing for too long. Neighbors, survivors, and dreamers gathered in the warm glow of lanterns and candlelight. Stories tumbled forth of loss, yes, but also of love fought for and won, of moments stolen from the jaws of the curse's relentless hunger. Mira moved through the crowd, her laughter bright and unwavering. "We are more than the curse," she declared, raising a glass. "We are the stories that refuse to end in ashes." Eva caught Rowan's eye across the room, a silent understanding passing between them. Their love, tempered by patience and sacrifice, was becoming a symbol, a beacon for those who dared to hope. Outside, the city settled into night, embers glowing softly beneath the surface, waiting. And for the first time in a long time, those embers seemed less like a warning and more like a promise. As Eva and Rowan stepped out into the cool air, hand in hand, the future stretched before them, uncertain, dangerous, but alive with possibility. They were no longer just survivors of the flame. They were its challengers. And in that challenge lay the fragile, fierce hope of tomorrow. The cafe was a sanctuary from the city's smoldering streets, a rare pocket of warmth and calm nestled amid the shadows of fear that clung to every corner. Inside, the soft murmur of quiet conversations mingled with the clink of coffee cups and the faint crackle of the fireplace. But in the dimly lit corner where Eva and Rowan sat, the world seemed to shrink until it consisted of little more than the space between them. Eva's fingers trembled slightly as she traced the rim of her cup, her stormy grey eyes flickering between the dancing flames in the hearth and the intense green gaze that held her captive across the small table. The air was thick with unspoken words and the weight of everything they had endured to arrive at this moment, this fragile, trembling moment where hope and fear intertwined like the embers of a dying fire. "I don't want to lose you." Rowan's voice was barely more than a whisper, raw with vulnerability and fierce with determination. His fingers reached across the table, brushing a loose strand of hair behind Eva's ear with a tenderness that belied the storm inside him. "But I'm here. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." Eva swallowed hard, her heart pounding in a rhythm that felt dangerously close to setting her ablaze. "I want to believe that," she admitted, her voice quivering as she leaned forward, bridging the gap between caution and longing. "But every time I get close, I feel the curse creeping in like it's waiting to consume us both." Rowan's hand found hers, the warmth of his skin seeping through the layers of fabric and straight into her guarded heart. "Then we fight it. Together. We write our own story, one measured moment at a time, no rushing, no reckless flames, just whispers and promises." A fragile smile cracked Eva's guarded exterior, the first genuine light she had allowed herself in months. "Whispers and promises," she echoed, the words tasting like hope and danger all at once. Outside the cafe's fogged windows, the city's glow flickered, the distant siren of an emergency piercing the night and pulling the shadows a little closer. Eva's breath hitched, a familiar chill crawling down her spine. The curse was never far, its presence a silent, whispering threat that lurked behind every stolen glance and every shared smile. Rowan noticed the sudden shift in her expression and tightened his grip on her hand, grounding her with a steady warmth. "We were not alone," he said softly, nodding toward the back of the cafe, where Mira and Detective Thorne stood in quiet conversation. "There are others who believe in us, who believe that love can survive this." Mira's fiery red hair caught the light as she smiled at Eva with fierce loyalty shining in her hazel eyes. Detective Thorne's sharp features were etched with worry, but there was a spark of resolve there too, a silent vow to uncover the truth behind the curse and protect those who dared to love. In that moment, amidst whispered promises and the flickering embers of a fragile hope, Eva and Rowan felt the weight of the city's curse lessen just a little. Their love, though tentative and fraught with peril, had become a beacon, a small, defiant flame burning bright enough to challenge the darkness. But the night was far from over, and the path ahead remained uncertain. As Eva leaned into Rowan's steady presence, their hearts beating slow and steady against the backdrop of a city that feared the fire of love, they knew there was only one choice left: to embrace the dangerous devotion that defined them, to hold on to each other and to the whispered promises that might just be enough to save them both. The fire outside might rage, but inside their love whispered on, fragile, fierce, and unyielding. And as the last embers of the night glowed softly beneath the city's smoldering skies, Eva and Rowan's story continued, one measured breath, one whispered promise at a time. The city lay beneath a heavy veil of smoke and twilight, its familiar glow dimmed by the persistent curse that clung to every street and shadow. From their vantage point on the modest balcony of the apartment they now shared, Eva and Rowan gazed out over the smoldering skyline. The fire's their orange embers pulsated like a heartbeat, a constant reminder of the city's frailty and the deadly weight they carried. Eva's fingers tightened around Rowan's, a small but fierce gesture of solidarity. Her stormy grey eyes, usually guarded and cautious, shimmered with a new light, a mixture of resolve and fragile hope. "We still here," she whispered, voice soft but steady. "Against everything." Rowan's intense green eyes flickered in the fading light, reflecting the flames below and the embers of their slow burning love. "We are," he agreed, his tone both a comfort and a challenge to the darkness that threatened them. "And we'll keep fighting together." The curse, the flame, remained an omnipresent force, a whisper at the edges of every emotional moment, a threat that could ignite their passion into ruin. Yet, where once fear had shackled them, now courage began to take root. Their journey had not been easy. Months of measured words, stolen glances, and cautious touch had led them here to a place where love no longer meant surrender but strength. They had learned the power of restraint, the delicate balance of patience and desire, and in that balance, they found a fierce kind of freedom. Inside the apartment, the soft hum of the city was punctuated by laughter and the clinking of cups. Mira's cafe had become their sanctuary, a beacon of warmth and defiance. On more than one occasion, Eva found herself lost in the comfort of Mira's vibrant presence, the bright red hair, the lively hazel eyes, and the colorful scarves that seemed to wrap the whole room in hope. Tonight, the cafe buzzed with quiet conversations and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Rowan leaned against the counter, sharing a rare smile with Mira, who was bustling between tables with effortless grace. The community they had built here, small but resolute, was a testament to the human spirit's refusal to be extinguished. Across town, Detective Elias Thorne sat alone in his dimly lit office. The soft glow of candlelight flickered against the walls lined with ancient manuscripts and brittle maps. His sharp features were drawn tight with concentration, shadowed eyes scanning the faded text for any clue that might unravel the curse's origins. Each new discovery brought both dread and determination. He traced a finger along a passage describing the ancient tragedy that had seeded the flame, a story of love and loss, passion and punishment. It was a painful mirror of Eva's and Rowan's own struggles, yet it also hinted at a deeper truth, that the curse was not invincible. Back in the quiet park beneath the aged oak tree, Eva and Rowan found solace in each other's presence. The night air was cool, the leaves whispering softly overhead as their fingers entwined. The world beyond seemed to hold its breath, tensed between fear and hope. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Eva asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Rowan met her gaze, his ember-like eyes steady and warm. "Every day. But whatever comes, we face it together. That's our strength." In that moment, the city's curse felt less like a chain and more like a challenge, a call to courage and connection that neither of them could ignore. As the hours deepened, their love remained a fragile flame against the vast darkness, a promise that even in a world scorched by fear, there was still room for hope, for tenderness, for a future that burned bright. And as dawn approached, casting pale light over the smoldering city, Eva and Rowan prepared to write the next chapter of their story, one of resilience, of restraint, and of a love that dared to endure. But the flame was watching, waiting. Would their courage be enough to outlast the fire? The city held its breath. Outside, the first hints of sunlight filtered through heavy clouds, painting the horizon with streaks of gold and rose. The streets, scarred by past combustions and whispered fears, began to stir with tentative life. Eva stood at the window, watching the city awaken, the weight of the curse pressing gently on her shoulders, yet no longer crushing her spirit. She turned to Rowan, who was gathering their few belongings for the day ahead. "Whatever happens," she said, "I want you to know I'm glad we're redoing this together." Rowan smiled, a rare softness in his ember-green eyes. "Me too, Eva, me too." They stepped out into the uncertain morning, hearts aflame yet steady, ready to face the unknown with a love that burned not to destroy, but to endure. And in that choice, they found their greatest strength yet. The city breathed beneath them, a tapestry of muted lights and the faintest glimmers of smoke curling like restless spirits into the twilight. Eva stood beside Rowan on the rooftop, their hands interlaced, fingers trembling not from cold but from the weight of the choice they had made. Below, the streets smoldered with old scars, the remnants of passion turned peril, the cruel legacy of the flame that had haunted this place for generations. But tonight, in this fragile moment suspended between dusk and darkness, the curse seemed to hold its breath. Evangeline Hart's stormy grey eyes searched Rowan's intense green ones, finding there a mirror of her own fierce resolve. "We can't live half-lives anymore," she whispered, her voice steady despite the years of fear that clung to her like a shroud. "Not just surviving, but truly living, loving. Even if it means risking everything." Rowan's sun-kissed complexion flushed under the weight of her words, a flicker of ember-like warmth blooming in his gaze. "Together," he said simply. "We face it, whatever comes. No more measured glances or whispered warnings. We burn bright, or not at all." The city around them pulsed with a silent, smoldering tension, as if the ancient flame itself was listening. For decades, the curse had sown fear, carving wounds into the hearts of everyone who dared to feel. But now, Eva and Rowan's defiance was more than rebellion, it was a beacon, a promise that love's power was not merely to destroy, but to transform. Later, in the warm embrace of Mira's cafe, the atmosphere was thick with the scent of roasted coffee and hope. The small room hummed softly with quiet conversations and the gentle clinking of cups. Mira, ever the vibrant soul with her bright red hair and colorful scarves, moved among the gathered friends and neighbors with the ease of someone who refused to be beaten by despair. Eva stood before the group, her voice resonant with newfound strength. "I've lived with the fear of this curse for so long," she began, "but tonight I choose to live with love instead. Not because it's safe, but because it's real, because it's worth every risk." Mira's hazel eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed, and the room responded with nods and murmurs of agreement. In a city where the flame of passion meant death, this gathering was a quiet revolution, a collective breath drawn against the chokehold of fatalism. Meanwhile, in a dim office cluttered with ancient texts and fading photographs, Detective Elias Thorne sat hunched over a desk, bathed in the soft glow of an oil lantern. The rustling pages of a centuries-old manuscript whispered secrets as he traced his finger along the faded script. Hours of relentless investigation led him to a passage previously overlooked, a legend speaking of choice, balance, and the possibility of tempering the curse through conscious, measured love. His sharp features softened in the lamplight, a flicker of cautious excitement sparking beneath his skeptical exterior. The curse, long thought an immutable force, might have a chink in its fiery armor, a glimmer of hope born not from magic alone, but from the courage of those willing to face the flame. Back beneath the vast canopy of stars, Eva and Rowan found solace in the quiet night. The cool air carried the scent of ash and rain, mingling with the steady rhythm of their breathing. They spoke little, their hearts communicating in whispers and glances, the kind of dialogue forged in shared trials and unspoken fears. "If we burn," Rowan murmured, fingers tracing the line of Eva's jaw, "let's burn bright. Let's become the light this city needs." A bittersweet smile curved Eva's lips, the ache of past losses softened by the fierce warmth of present love. "Together," she echoed, "we'll rewrite what it means to love here." Their promise hung in the air, fragile as embers yet as potent as wildfire. The flame might still flicker in the shadows, ready to consume. But Eva and Rowan's hearts blazed defiantly, a testament to the power of love to challenge even the darkest fate. As the first tendrils of dawn brushed the horizon, casting a soft glow over the smoldering city, the two stood side by side, burning bright, unyielding, and fearless in their devotion. The curse was far from broken, but its grip had loosened, held at bay by the courage of those who dared to love beyond fear. And in the quiet crackle of the waking city, hope whispered anew. The first light of dawn stretched gently across the city, casting long shadows that danced with the promise of a new day. Eva stood beside Rowan atop the hill overlooking the smoldering rooftops, the cool morning air brushing softly against their faces. Their fingers intertwined, an unspoken vow held in the simple act of touch. The city below was still cloaked in the lingering haze of the night's embers, a reminder of the curse that had shaped every heartbeat, every breath, every cautious glance between lovers for as long as anyone could remember. Evangeline Hart, whose life had been a careful navigation of shadows and fears, felt the fragile warmth of the sunrise stir something long dormant within her. Rowan's steady presence beside her was both a comfort and a challenge, a living contradiction to the warnings carved into her soul. They had walked this precarious path together, inching toward a love that burned bright yet careful, a fire tempered by patience and courage. "It's beautiful," Rowan whispered, his voice low and warm, eyes reflecting the fiery glow of the dawn. "Not just the sunrise, but this moment, us." Eva nodded, her stormy grey eyes searching his intense green ones, flickering like embers in the morning light. "It's fragile," she said softly, "like the city itself. But maybe fragile is where hope lives." Their journey had been marked by loss and fear, the ever-present threat of combustion shadowing their every move. Yet here they stood, choosing to embrace a love that defied the curse's cruel grip. It was an act of rebellion, a declaration that the heart's yearning could not be extinguished by ancient flames. Later, in the warm sanctuary of Mira's cafe, the scent of fresh coffee and pastries mingled with quiet laughter and the gentle murmur of friends gathered in defiance of despair. Eva and Rowan shared a moment of stillness amid the comforting chaos, their gazes locked in a silent conversation of hopes and fears. Mira bustled between tables, her bright red hair a beacon of fiery optimism. "You two are a spark," she said, sliding a cup of tea toward Eva. "A spark this city desperately needs." Eva smiled, the tension easing from her shoulders. "We were trying," she said. "Trying to hold on to each other without burning out." Rowan reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Slowly," he agreed. "Measured love, that's our way forward." But even in this haven, the whisper of the flame lingered. Detective Elias Thorne approached quietly, his trench coat damp from the morning rain. His sharp eyes held both wariness and determination. "The curse isn't gone," he said softly, "but neither is the city's will to fight it. There are ways ancient, dangerous, but ways to weaken it." Eva's heart quickened. Then maybe this isn't the end. Maybe it's just the beginning. Outside, the rain had softened to a gentle mist, washing away remnants of fear and grief. In the nearby park, laughter echoed as Lila and Harper chased each other beneath the budding trees. Their carefree joy was a fragile light, a future worth fighting for. Eva and Rowan watched from a nearby bench, their hands still joined, their breaths synchronized with the rhythm of the awakening world. They carried the weight of history and the promise of what could be. The curse remained, a shadow cast by generations of pain, but their love, fierce, careful, and unwavering, was a beacon in the darkness. "We can't erase the past," Eva murmured, "but we can choose how we live with it, how we love with it." Rowan squeezed her hand gently. "Together. Always." As the city stirred beneath the bittersweet dawn, Ava and Rowan faced the uncertain future with a courage born of fire and faith. Their love was a fragile flame, yes, but a flame that refused to be snuffed out. And in that defiant light, the city found a new hope. The wind carried the scent of smoke mingled with the fresh morning air as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the embroidered curtains of Eva's modest apartment. She stirred awake, fingers brushing against the small vial of ashes resting on her bedside table, a relic of loss, a symbol of her guarded heart. Yet today, the vial felt lighter, as if the weight of despair had lifted ever so slightly. Rowan's voice came softly through the open window where he stood, watching the awakening city. "It's a new day, Eva. One we get to write ourselves." She smiled, stepping to the window to join him. The city below was alive with cautious hope, people moving with a tentative grace, hearts still wary but daring to beat a little faster. "We'll carry the flame," Eva said, "but we won't let it consume us. And if it tries?" Rowan asked, his eyes locking with hers. "Then we'll burn together," she replied, fierce and tender. The city's curse was ancient, its flames unyielding, but within the hearts of two lovers, it found a new story to tell, one of courage, sacrifice, and the bittersweet beauty of love that dares to burn bright against the darkness. The dawn was theirs, fragile, fierce, and full of promise. As the sun climbed higher, Eva and Rowan stepped back into the city's pulse, their presence a quiet rebellion against fear. Conversations hushed as they passed. Eyes once filled with dread now flickered with the possibility of something more. Behind them, Mira's cafe buzzed with life. Ilias's investigations whispered of hope, and the laughter of children like Harper echoed as a reminder of what was at stake. The flame still whispered, still flickered in the shadows. But Eva and Rowan had learned to listen, not just to its warnings, but to the steady beat of their own hearts, a rhythm that no curse could silence. Their love was a bittersweet dawn, a fragile light that would carry them through whatever nights lay ahead.